Right, exactly.
Yeah, you can sit here if you want.
All right, well, if you joined late, welcome. That was the welcome video. Now we're going to take a quick virtual tour of the Beer Can Museum and Hall of Fame, and you can feel free to ask questions as we go. Can everyone see the first slide?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so these are essentially the first beer cans, okay? They were test marketed in 1933, but the first sale of the beer can happened in the United States, January 24th, 1935. It's easy for me to remember that because the beer can is the same age as my mother. That helps me to remember my mom's age. I mean, my mom's helps me remember the beer can's age. That's probably how I should put it.
Good call.
So the first beer cans were flat top beer cans.
1935, first commercial sale of beer.
Jim, I'm going to mute you in a minute.
If you don't stop.
If you don't behave, I'm going to mute you. So these are the first beer cans.
Sorry, that's my father-in-law's birthday.
Oh, really?
Oh.
January.
Wow. I didn't. Exciting. Thank you for chiming in. That is good to know. So I've got to mute. Somebody's making a lot of noise. I'm sorry, guys. Who's the problem child here?
It's the curator's wife.
It
this
might
whole
be.
time. It's.
I muted her. She's not going to speak to me again. I'm going to unmute you, honey. Okay, can everybody hear now? So we're moving on to cone top cans. So the flat top cans were all the rage in 1935. They took off. They were a huge hit, but all the other brewers that could not afford the fancy canning equipment used their existing bottling equipment, and they could put these crowns on the cone top cans. So cone tops came along a little bit later in 1935. You can see some examples in the lower left. The one in the middle, the Fitzgerald's Pale Ale out of Albany, New York. That's a crown tainer. That's a two-piece beer can. And then let's see if I can get this to you.
Your future son-in-law has joined.
Steve-O, you missed the congratulations slide, but we can go back to that. Okay,
Yeah,
we're moving on to the, it looks like a real motorcycle. Some people see this slide and they're like, you got a motorcycle? No, this is an upcycled art made out of Heineken beer cans. Motorcycle fans, sit back, relax, and just take it all in. That is the Heineken motorcycle beer can. We have 3 different airplanes in the museum. This is one of them. We have a Molson golden beer can that hangs from the rafters. We have a lot of beer trays, probably 2 or 3 dozen beer trays. That's one of my favorites on the right, Pickwick Ale. In addition to beer cans, beer-related collectibles are called breweriana. You can look it up. It's a real word. So we enhance the museum collection with a lot of breweriana. That's towels that hang from the rafters. We have a bar down here in the museum that's covered with collectible beer glasses and so forth, and millions of coasters. And Tim Wakefield bobblehead for all you Red Sox fans over there on the right. If anybody needs a breath mint, we have Corona Extra Breath Mints. Those were acquired in Tijuana, Mexico. And there's a classic 1970s crocheted beer hat on the right. And I think Rachel's on the call from Florida, and I think she has offered to make one of those for the museum one of these days.
Sure.
Excellent. We have an extensive collection of error cans. This is just one example. This is Stroh's out of Detroit, Michigan. This was packaged and came through the canning line upside down. Error cans are very, very common, actually, but they're also great conversation pieces in the museum. We have a lot of printing error cans, upside down cans like this one. This is the curator's desk, also known as my home office since the pandemic started. Kidding. But I do a lot of the important museum work at this desk. It's cleared off. most of the time. I pity the fool that doesn't know the reference here. This is a Dallas-based craft can featuring Mr. T. This is one of my favorite recent additions. This came in over the last year. Back in the 1950s, Boeing Corporation had two giant wind tunnels that you can see on the right-hand side of the slide. And they used to use it to test miniature versions of supersonic jets. It's really this bizarre story. In order to keep the temperature cool inside these wind tunnels, they ordered up literally millions of empty, unused beer cans and soda cans and soup cans, and they filled up these wind tunnels with these cans. It wasn't until the year 2016 when they were tearing these wind tunnels down that they discovered this literal treasure trove of these cans, a lot of them fairly rare. And so we were lucky enough to get one. You can see it on the far right. It's the Rainier can from Seattle. And they were really rare cans for many years, but once this gold mine was found, suddenly the market was swamped with these Jubilee cans from Rainier Beer. But they're really fun to talk about in the museum. So that's the wind tunnel find. Now we have a lot of artwork in the museum. This is actually a ceramic beer can on the left from Liz Crane Ceramics. She's out in Portland, Oregon, and she did a special project that was touring out there called 99 Cans of Beer on the Wall. We connected over Instagram, and I traded her an art book with a collection of Monet prints, which I had gotten at work, for this Tex beer can on the left, which is just a beautiful work of art. I keep that behind glass in the museum. We represent more than 79, we're up to about 79 countries represented in the museum. You can see a few of them here. We have a Beer Cans Around the World exhibit. If you ever make it in person, once this pandemic is over, come on down and we'll show you all 79 countries. Okay, we'll take you back to the 1980s. Generic products, not to be confused with store brands. They were a fad in the 80s. I remember my mother used to buy green beans and things like that with the generic packaging. We have about 6 different versions in the museum. Some more, did somebody belch? I'm sorry, what was that? Looking on the left, we've got a beer can address book. This is more upcycled art. My wife has an A&W root beer version of this in her purse, I believe. And on the right, we see some of the tiniest pieces of art in the museum. These are dollhouse beer cans. I found the first one in Boston in the Prudential Mall many, many years ago. I found a dollhouse vendor, and I was looking around, and they had a tiny little Coors can. You can see it on the table there. And I've since added a few others. Somebody needs to mute. Please? Okay, you're muted for now. This is another piece of upcycled art. This is from an artist in the Dallas area. He literally cuts these shapes out of some of the newer craft cans and attaches them to wood. And he does huge ones. I have a few little ones in the museum. Okay, now we're going to talk about celebrities. This is an actual movie prop. John Wayne presented it to a bartender at the Newporter Inn in Newport Beach, California, where he spent a lot of time. This is a Falstaff can that he drank out of and handed the bartender and said, keep it. They glued it to the bar. This can still has the glue on the bottom of it. It was on the bar there for many years. When they renovated the Newporter Inn in the early 90s, a collector got a hold of this at this store in Santa Monica, California. And as he got older, he had a huge collection of John Wayne memorabilia, and he emailed me several years ago and he wanted to know if I was interested in this can. He was going to either give it to the John Wayne Museum or to the Beer Can Museum, and I had to kind of make a pitch for it. And I didn't hear from him for another year, and then finally it arrived in the mail. with the certificate of authenticity, and the original price tag was $750 that he paid for it out in California. Moving on to TV props. This is the Budmeister can. When the show Married with Children, Ed O'Neill there on the right, when they came off the air and they cleared out the set, they found a bunch of these cans in the refrigerator. Turns out they were filled with Diet Pepsi, but they were made to look obviously like Budweiser, and they were used on several of the shows. Married with Children. Over on the left, you see a couple of the Heady Topper and Focal Banger cans from Vermont, the Alchemist Brewery. I'm actually wearing a bracelet that's made out of upcycled, I don't know if you can see it, upcycled art. But what you see on the right is a silkscreen piece of art from Dan Blakesley. Dan is a folk singer in addition to being a talented artist. And so I had that poster hanging in the museum, and he sent me a nice note, which I have framed and put in the museum as well. And it's a delicious beer, one of the best in the world. Now we have some fan art from my goddaughter, Marjorie, who's on the call from New Hampshire this evening. You can see on the left, she sent a happy birthday card to me. And she said, "This is the beer that you have tattooed on your leg, right?" And she nailed it. That is my tattoo of the first beer can, the Krugers, from 1935. And over the next year or two, I hope to get another tattoo on my left leg, which will be the opener, which is used to open the flat top beer can. Also in the museum, we have ephemera. This is sort of the other weird stuff that I have stored away in several file cabinets in the museum. Things that exist or are used or enjoyed for a short time, typically written or printed ones that were originally expected to have only short-term usefulness or popularity. So basically, I have a lot of old beer labels, postcards, articles, crammed into various 3-ring binders here in the museum. Someday when you have several hours, come on by. Beer can art. I have advertising throughout the museum. Especially helpful if I go on the road. This was an actual mobile exhibit that we brought just outside of Boston to a fall festival at Gore Mansion, and which was pretty neat. I got to actually do an actual museum exhibit. We had hundreds and hundreds of people lined up to see this collection I put together, which was pretty fun. People really loved some of the novelty cans and the history behind some of these cans. There's a World War II can in here. I didn't have one in the slideshow, but during the 1940s, they stopped production of tin-plated beer cans because of the war effort. So all the beer cans produced between 1942 and 1947 were olive drab or camouflage, and they were all sent overseas to our troops. So those are very coveted by collectors. These were some of the cans when I got them back from my exhibit. And that was me practicing setting up the exhibit with my little tent cards. I've just started an autographed can wing over the last year or so, which is fun. That can in the middle is autographed by a tattoo artist from Brooklyn named Stephen Huey. Very talented. You see a giant lobster taking over the New York City subway system. On the right, we have some upcycled art. Narragansett can. I'm not sure why they chose to make a crab out of a lobster-based can, but it's still a crustacean. And this is an actual packaging from the 1950s. We had a fence put up, and whenever people come over to work on things in the house, I give them a tour of the museum. A few days after the fence guy left, I got home, and this was on the front porch from the fence guy. He had been sitting in his garage for many years, so he donated it to the museum. Kind of cool. So I'm going to take everyone off of